Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this meeting of the Leeds City Region Business Rates Pool Joint Committee. I'll run through the formalities at the top of the agenda. Do you have any appeals against refusal of inspection of documents, please?
There's no appeals, Chair.
Are there any late items, please?
There's no formal late items, but members of the Joint Committee have received a couple of supplementary packs relating to the main item on the agenda.
Thank you. Are there any exempt items?
The agenda contains no exempt information.
Thank you. And are there any apologies for absence, please, Helen?
Thank you. Excuse me. We do have a number of apologies. Councillor Swift has sent his apologies and Councillor Dacre here as substitute. Councillor Hinchcliffe has sent her apologies. Councillor Pandor has sent his apologies. Councillor Davis is here as substitute. And Councillor Jeffrey has sent her apologies and Councillor Shaw is here as substitute. Thank you. We also have apologies from Jackie Gedman and Eamon Croston is here as substitute, from Andrew Bolshin, and Neil is here. Neil Warren is here as substitute, sorry, and from Ian Floyd as well. Thank you. And from Kirsten England, Robin Tuddenham, Wallace Sampson, Ben Still, Tom Reardon and Victoria. And Councillor Cooper from Harrogate has sent his apologies as well.
Great, thank you. I'll turn to the committee and see if there's any declarations of interest. I don't see any. I'm going to turn to the minutes of the last meeting, which was held on the 10th of August, and see if everybody is happy with those. Are there any matters arising? No, there are not. So we will move on to the main item, which is the business rates pool report, please. Is that you, Richard? Thank you.
Thank you. So this report just sets out the sort of context for which the 22-23 Leeds City Region Business Rate Pool was set up. It sets details of sort of the current position with regard to the two pools, which was the 21-22 pool and the latest income projections for the 22-23 pool. And then it gives consideration to the proposed allocation of funding based on the latest figures for both of those financial years. As members will remember, the 22-23 Leeds City Region Business Rates Pool was designated from April the 1st this year under the 50% retention scheme, and the advantage of the pool is to retain within the region levy payments which otherwise would have been made to central government. In terms of the structure of the pool, that's all the West Yorkshire districts plus York and Harrogate as well. In terms of the governance arrangements we have in place, it's a joint committee comprising all leaders of the member authorities, and the memorandum of understanding for the 22-23 business rate pool in terms of reference was approved at the joint committee meeting on the 10th of August. The memorandum of understanding closely mirrors the structure of the government's draft example, and it states that any retained funding after funding regional projects should be distributed back to member authorities using the formulation 25% in proportion to population, 25% in proportion to growth above baseline, 25% in proportion to the levy payments made to the pool, and 25% to the four top-up authorities. And just to note that this distribution is different to the distribution that we've used in previous years. That distribution was agreed as part of the memorandum of understanding. So moving on, just to consider the position with regard to the provisional outturn position for both 21-22 and for 22-23. In terms of the business rate pool for 21-22, when that's put together and submitted, it was estimated that the pool would retain £4.8 million of retained levy payments. As you can see on table 1 on page 12, the projected level of resource to be retained is 4.289 million, and you can see the distribution of that in terms of the contributing authorities, Harrogate, Leeds and York. In terms of the 22-23 pool, again, when that was put together, the estimated level of funding to be available was seen to be 5.1 million, but the latest figure, well, on this table is showing 4.4 million, but you make reference to the addendum on table 1 within there based on the latest position. We had updated figures from York. The 4.4 million has increased to 5.2 million. Section 6 of the report just flags up just some of the risk to pool funding, and it was really around the continued risk to business rates with regard to the sort of performance of the economy and the level of business rates that will be realised, and also just makes reference to the fact that in terms of the arrangements for the operation of the pool, if authorities fall below the 92.5% safety net threshold, then that will become a cost to be picked up by the other members of the pool. But just in terms of the current position is that based on the current forecast for 22-23, while some local authorities are close to the safety net threshold, no authority within the pool is currently forecast to breach the threshold. So now move on section 7 to the proposed allocation of the Leeds City Region business rate pool funds. And if referencing table 4 in 7.4 in terms of 21-22, remember referenced the projection is 4.289 million. There have been 2 releases that were agreed at previous committee, 144,000 for Screen Yorkshire grant and a 30,000 contribution to the lead authorities supporting the business rates pool. That leaves 4.115 to be distributed, again in terms of the distribution mechanism that was agreed, and that distribution between each of the local authorities in the business rate pool is detailed in table 4. In terms of the 22-23 position, the latest forecast, it's again in terms of the main report here shows 4.4 million, but as per the addendum table 2, the latest projection is for 5.2 million pounds to be received, of which 30,000 will go to the lead authority with supporting the administration of the pool, which leaves 5.174 to be distributed. And again, you can see in table 2 the incidence of that distribution as per the agreed distribution methodology. So in terms, just turning to sorry, I don't have any questions about that before moving to the recommendations. So okay, there's 4 recommendations there, which was to note the context, structure and governance of the business rates pool, and the provisional outturn pool income for 21-2 and the projected pool income for 22-23, to note the risks of retained income and breaching this sort of 92.5% safety net, and to note the provisional outturn distribution benefits of the 21-22 pool and the forecast redistribution of the 22-23 pool income to member authorities. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Richard. Do any members of the committee or any of the officers present wish to come in at this point before I turn to the recommendations? Yes, please. Could you introduce yourself as well, Paula, please, for the record?
It's Councillor Paula Widdowson from York City Council. Just like to understand when we get to discuss the paper that I've drafted and sent around before we go to the recommendations, because I'm assuming the recommendations are where the decision is made.
Richard, please.
Councillor, I thought the assumption in terms of your paper was for the second meeting where we're talking about the distribution of the 23-24 pool.
Yeah, the 22. So the one that is happening this year, which is already decided and fixed.
That's correct. Yeah.
Right. So when's the decision for the next one?
That's on the meeting after this one, which follows on from that. Just to cause confusion. Sorry about that. Yeah, no, sorry. I think for 21-22 and 22-23, we've agreed the methodology to the memorandum of understanding. I think your paper, I assume, was referencing the 23-24 business rate pool, which is the meeting after this to discuss the amount of resources there, but it's about that to agree the distribution methodology.
Yes, that's correct, Paula. So this is about the current business rate pool, which includes Harrogate.
Yeah.
Obviously, Harrogate. Should there have been anybody at Harrogate at this meeting, would have asked politely, very, very politely, asked them to left before I moved on to discussion about what we do next year. And my understanding from reading your paper, it was about next year, not about this year.
I'm never sure which way that it works. In the way that it's being carried forward. So that's fine.
Thank you. Are there any more comments? Okay, I am going to turn to the recommendations on page 16 of the paper, which relate to the 21-22 and 22-23 Leeds City Region business rates pool. And I take all those members and those authorised officers are happy with those recommendations. That's great. So we bring this meeting to a close. Thank you very much.